Welcome back, everybody. We are about halfway through our sew along. This is week 3, and so far we have constructed the front and the back of our dress. It really doesn't look like much right now, but we constructed the front and the back, and then we also constructed the sleeves. We have a really pretty ruffle happening on the sleeve. And this week we are going to be finishing the neckline and putting the ties on. So we'll head on over to the cutting table and get started. All right, let's take a look at our front neckline. The back side is facing up currently. So we have the sleeves. We have a sleeve over here and we have a sleeve over here. We are going to be finishing off the neckline. So really what we're doing is taking this whole front, starting at this side front piece that we stitched on in the beginning. We're going to start at the corner here, and I'm going to be serging all the way around this whole dress, around the sleeve here, all the way around the sleeve, all the way around the front, through this sleeve, and then all the way down to this finished the front hem. So we have a lot of hemming to do, but I'm going to serge that whole thing, and then I'm going to fold my serged edge under and then top stitch it. That's all I'm going to do, because what the directions say is to finish the upper edge of the dress, you want to press under a 3/8 inch seam allowance. You would be pressing the 3/8 inch under using a tool perhaps like this, and then pressing. And they also want you to then turn under maybe like 1/8 inch so that you have a very narrow hem, and then press that and top stitch it. You definitely can do that, especially if you don't have a serger. But because I have a serger, I'm going to skip that step of pressing under the 1/8 and then pressing it again to create the narrow hem. So if you don't have a serger, do that. If you have a serger, go for it. Put a whole serge around all of those edges that I talked about, and then we'll meet back here at the table. So I'm starting here with the front seam hem, and I'm going to stitch all the way around. Here's one of my seams that I pressed towards the back, so I'm going to hold that down and make sure it stays there. All right, once you have that serged and pressed down at that 3/8 inch seam allowance, I'm going to stitch close to the edge all the way around. Now we're on to the front. We're going around the second sleeve. Now I'm coming out towards the back, or the wrap section. I shouldn't really call this the back. It's going to be the back in mine, but the wrap section of your dress. right, so there we have the finished edge, the hem. So we're going to head over to the cutting table and we're going to be putting the single fold bias tape on here to create a casing. I'm starting at the edge here where the side hem and the top hem meet. And I took my single fold bias tape off of the card. I gave it a good press because when it's wrapped on these cards, it gets creased in those areas. So I did a good press on it, making sure that it was all nice and flat, and also that some of these bias tape, or just making sure that some of these folded areas were actually folded, because there were a couple that were not. So I'm going to take the bias tape here and fold it under about a ½ inch or so, and put that right up at the edge of the where the two hems meet. You're basically going to be following that placement line that you should have marked on there, and it's actually really, really close to the edge of your hem. So we're going to pin that and then go all the way around till you get to the other side. I'm just going to record a couple seconds of me doing this so that you get the idea. And then I'm going to stop it because it'll take a while and you'll just be seeing me pin. But that placement line ended up sort of being right where the raw edge of that hem is. Okay, so I'm going to continue that the whole way around. And then what we're going to do is go to the sewing machine and stitch the casing down on both sides, so on the left side and the right side, and that's going to create the casing that we're going to use to insert the elastic into. All right, let's sew this casing onto our dress. So again, to just recap, I have it folded here at the edge, and I'm going to start on the left side. Now, this is an option. You don't have to do this, but I can move my needle left and right. I'm going to move it to the left 2 notches or two moves, and try to keep that along the edge of my casing, and then this other side along the edge of my presser foot. We'll see if it works. Let's check it out. Yeah, it's looking pretty nice so far. One thing I wanted to mention is that you can make your own bias tape out of extra fabric. I am not choosing to do that because it's a lot of bias tape and I'm a little lazy. But you definitely could make your own bias tape. You want to make sure that it's bias cut because you're going around curves and the bias tape stretches going around curves, versus if you had just cross grain tape, it would not move with your fabric that you're putting it with. So just something to keep in mind if you would choose to make your own, to make sure that you're truly using a bias tape and not just cut strips of fabric. In this section is especially where it's important for it to be on the bias, because you're working on that heavy curve that the sleeve produces. left this bias tape section not cut yet, so I'm going to cut that off because I didn't know if there would be any shifting, and I wanted to make sure I had enough. So I'm going to fold that under and stitch to the end. All right, now I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. And do the same thing on this side. This time I'm going to line up my presser foot with this edge, the left edge, and move my needle over. It would be 2 notches away. Let's check, yeah. 2 notches away from center. Actually going to make that 1 notch away from center and bring that over. You want to make sure you're as close to the edge of your bias tape as possible because you want to make sure that you can get your 1/4 inch elastic through there. It's the worst when you can't. The good remedy is you could always get something a little thinner, like a 1/8, but it's not as ideal because that 1/4 inch does have some stability to it that will help with your garment. 1/8 of an inch seam elastic. 1/8 of an inch elastic doesn't always, it might not pull up quite as well because it's on the thinner side. All right, and I'm going to continue to go around the rest of this. I'm not going to record that, but I'm going to just continue to go around the rest of this just like I did the left side. One of the pattern pieces that you cut out was piece 5. It's the guide for the elastic. So taking your 1/4 inch elastic, you just want to line it up with the edge of the pattern piece. And don't stretch the elastic, but just guide it down and make sure that you're cutting the proper length. I had already pre-cut mine, so mine's the length of the guide. So you can set that piece aside. We are going to fish the elastic through the casing, just like we did earlier with the sleeve bands. So I have the safety pin here attached to the elastic. I'm going to fish this through the casing. Now, as you're fishing it through, just make sure that you're keeping the elastic flat as you go. Might be a little tricky to get it started because you want to make sure that that front end of the safety pin is going to go through properly. But you want to fish it through, making sure that this is staying nice and flat the whole way. And you're going to do this the whole way across your piece. Every so often pull on the back end to bring more elastic your way. And just continue to do that the whole way around. I'm not going to video me doing the whole thing. I'll come back after I have it all fished through. All right, that part was quite an undertaking. I finished off each of these edges with some zigzag stitches to make sure that that elastic is really stuck in there. You don't want those stitches to ever come apart because then the elastic is going to go inside your neckline and it's going to be a disaster to have to try to fix. Here you can see the other side. So we have one more step to do, and that's creating the ties. So I want you to grab the tie belt pattern piece, which is piece number 6, and I have those pieces right here. You're going to fold the tie in half lengthwise so that the long edges are meeting. And you're going to stitch with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and leaving an opening in the middle. So we're going to start down here at the corner and do 3/8 of an inch stop and then pivot and come all the way down. And then part way I'm going to stop and then start again, leaving an opening. We're going to do that 2 times because we have 2 belt pieces. So I'm going to head over to the sewing machine and show you that step. The good news is my seam allowance will be measured by just lining up the raw edge of my fabric with my presser foot. This is a 3/8 of an inch measurement right here. So I'm going to start in the middle of this small end because I'm going to back stitch and then come forward. If I would have started right at the edge, I have the risk of having the fabric pulled into the sewing machine and then you're getting this ugly rat's nest and it's just a mess. So I went backwards, came back, and I'm gonna make one more stitch, but I'm gonna keep my needle down. I'm going to pivot the whole piece here. I'm gonna pivot the whole piece here and line up and make sure that I have 3/8 of an inch with the raw edge. And as I sew, I'm going to make sure that my raw edges are even. Again, this is right sides together. And when you feel that you are at a halfway point, stop, back stitch, and then take the piece off, and then come down, let's say 3 or 4 inches, start again and back stitch, and then continue to the end. As I approach the end, I'm going to stop about 3/8 of an inch away from this raw edge. Put my needle down and pivot again. And then back stitch there. Okay, so I have my first tie done. I'm going to sew the other tie, but while I have you here on this screen, I'm going to clip my corner. You want to get as close to this seam as possible without cutting through it. I might even cut that a little smaller there. And I'm going to do that on the other side as well. All right, I'm gonna stitch my other tie and then I will show you how to turn it out right side out. Okay, next we're going to turn our tie belt, but I wanted to show you these really cool tools called a fast turn. They are perfect for turning tubes, and this particular set that I have comes with different sizes. This really large one all the way down to this tiny one that you could use for like a little spaghetti strap. I'm going to pick, I think I'm going to pick this one. It's pretty much at the middle of the road. I use this one most often. I don't know if it has a size. It says number 4. I don't know if you can see that little number 4, but it says number 4. So that must be the size of that. So I'm going to move these other ones out of the way. They also come with these little thin catchers. I'm going to call it a catcher. And you want to find the one that's going to be long enough to go through your project. Most of them are about the same length except for that little pink one. Okay, so let me find my opening here. I'm going to take the one end, I'm going to take the one end of the fast turn tool and feed it all the way up to the end. And then I'm going to put the little metal piece in. And I have my finger right here, and I'm going to feel for that fast turn apparatus. And you want to twist it. You can see on the edge here, you can see here that there's a very tiny little curve in the metal. So you want to twist that as you're putting it up into the fabric, and that's going to hold it in place as you pull it down through. So I'm pulling on the metal piece. I'm pulling on the thin metal piece to bring that side of the tube out. So I have it turned right side out. I would go in here with a little sharp implement to like a point turner to get that nice and crisp. But before I do that, I'm going to go to this other side and turn that side. We don't sell fast turns on our website. I tried to get them in the pandemic, and of course they were sold out in this big packet. Otherwise, I just didn't know which ones that I should buy, so I have not purchased them for our website as of yet, but you never know, things might change. All right, so I'm going to, I have one of these point turners, and I'm going to find the hole again. And fish that up through. Now this is the very tricky part. You have to be very, very careful. Carefully push that point into the corners to get as crisp of a point as possible. Don't overdo it or your point's going to come out that end. And I gotta find out where it comes out. Oh, down there. And I'm gonna repeat the same over here on this side. Okay, so that's the other side. And I would take this over to the iron and give it a good press, making sure that your seam is right along, the seam that you sewed along is flat along the edge there. And if it doesn't automatically just go there, you kind of have to move it with your fingers a little bit to make it get that nice crease. Okay, so I have that nice and pressed flat. You would next want to go to your sewing machine and just sew along that open edge. You can do top stitching around this if you want to. The directions don't tell you to do that. The directions also tell you to slip stitch this, which means that you would hand stitch this closed. You can do whatever method that you feel is best for you. I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and stitch down there once I have my other tie done, but I don't think I'm going to go around and top stitch. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. I'll think about that. But I'm going to do the same process on this next belt, tie belt, and then we'll attach it to the dress and we'll be done for today. The last step for today is attaching the ties to the wrap section of your dress. So you're going to pin it right onto the dress, matching it up with that casing. You want to make sure that the tie is going in the out direction, away from your dress, and you're just going to stitch that down in that area. And you're going to do it on both sides. So that's the one edge. Here's the other edge. And I'm just going to take the tie and pin it on there, matching it up with the casing again. And then I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and stitch it back and forth. I'm not going to show this step because it's pretty straightforward, but that's the last step for today. And then next week we will be putting on the ruffle and then also hemming if you are making view B. But you'll also be having to hem with view A as well. So next week will be the finishing touches to our dress.